Welcome to the Honest Healing Podcast, real talk for cycle breakers. I'm your host, Katie Delamon. If you're ready to speak up, set boundaries, heal your nervous system, and build better relationships, you're in the right place. Because you don't need to be perfect to heal. You just need to be honest. Let's go. Welcome to episode 20 of the Honest Healing Podcast, Trauma and Memory. Your mind forgets, but your body remembers. In today's episode, I'm going to be talking about the 5 scientific reasons your brain hides trauma, but how your body carries it until you're ready to heal. AKA, if you are holding any kind of trauma, it's going to show up as nervous system dysregulation. Now, in today's episode, I want the listener to know 2 things. If you can't remember your childhood, that is completely normal and natural and okay. You don't have to remember your childhood in order to heal from it. You also, just because you don't remember your childhood doesn't mean that it was horribly bad and you had all this traumatic stuff happen to you. Most people can't remember their childhood, but in some cases, in a lot of cases, yes. If there was a painful memory or a moment, of course, the brain, which you'll find out in this episode, does everything it can to protect you and to keep you safe. So if that is too painful of a memory to go in, it will do everything it can to try not to let you go back into it. But this is how we retrain our nervous system to say we are mature adults who can heal and who can handle anything life throws at them. This is also an episode for those of you who may have remembered something traumatic and maybe you're a bit scared on how to process it. I talk about my own personal experience, how I was actually told quite a few times, well, at least once in my life, somebody told me that the man who raised me is not my biological father, yet I decided to bury that. I also asked my dad when I was little, and potentially more people that I don't remember, but my dad told me specifically that I asked him when I was little, why don't I look like my siblings? Like, he thought I knew when I was little, and I know that I knew, but like, it's hard to explain how your body knows something, but your mind is doing whatever it can to protect you. And so this episode, like I said, we're going to talk about those 5 scientific reasons why your brain will hide the trauma, but your body is going to carry it. Let's jump in. Today, as I record this podcast episode, November 25th, 2025, it marks the 1-year anniversary of finding out that the man who raised me is not my biological father. This is the day 1 year ago where I opened up the Ancestry.com results at 6 a.m. in the morning on my meditation cushion. Spoiler alert, if you didn't know already. But surprisingly, this actually wasn't the first time I did find out the truth about my biological father, nor was it the first time that I actually knew he was. I'm going to talk about those stories later on in the episode, but this actually came up and I'm writing about it in my second book, Lies We Inherit: How Family Secrets Shape, Break, but Ultimately Heal Us. Because the truth about my biological father didn't just suddenly appear at 38 years old on this Ancestry.com test. It was there all along, and it actually came up multiple times throughout my life. People told me things, I felt it in my body, but I never felt safe enough to ask questions. And this episode is for anybody out there who, one, may remember something or may come into some information that is quite challenging, quite hard, quite, overwhelming. Or on the other end of that is someone who is struggling to wanting to remember something in order to heal. I want this episode to empower you to know that you do not have to remember the thing in order to heal it, and your body is never weak. It's always protecting you. I'm going to walk you through today the 5 scientific reasons why your brain hides trauma, but how your body carries it until you're ready to heal, and how that is the key in healing, is through your body. Yes, I love neuroscience, neuroplasticity, and training the brain, but it really starts in the body first, or at least it did for me. Often I hear my clients say stuff like, I don't remember my childhood. Isn't that bad? Or, my parents were fine. They just weren't that emotional. I didn't have any trauma. And while, yes, it is totally, completely normal to not have childhood memories, strong emotions are usually attached to strong memory. So usually you remember things that were either quite challenging or maybe something that made you really happy. But a lot of the times when something was really overwhelming and really challenging for us as children, we actually disassociated or we shut down and we shoved it down into that subconscious because it was too much to handle. Now, also when people say, my parents were fine, I didn't grow up with any physical violence or emotional neglect, and my parents just weren't emotional, and that's just the way they were, and that's just the way how things were. I want you to go back to, I think it's episode 5, where trauma is not drama. I'm not pushing my own trauma or childhood, dysfunction on you, but I know that nobody comes out without a wound. And trauma just means wound. It's not what happened to you, it's what happens inside of you. And we all carry wounds, they show up in our bodies. But I'm going to first talk about the science, and I want this to be a pretty, short and sharp episode. So, the 5 reasons why your brain hides trauma. First and foremost, disassociation and compartmentalization. This is where your brain walls off anything overwhelming. And it, of course, happens in childhood and young adulthood, but it can happen in adulthood as well. I got so good at disassociating. It was one of my key trauma responses. It showed up multiple times in my life, throughout my life, especially in my 20s, especially when I was drinking. I would literally disassociate. I would say I was blacked out like 90% of my life living in New York City that I don't remember. And yes, alcohol had a lot to do with it, but it's also because my body disassociated. I would wake up with bruises, not remember falling down a flight of stairs or falling down anywhere. Like the brain is incredible on what it does to protect you. So you can hear something and still not emotionally process it. And I'm just going to use my story as the example, but I know you will have plenty of them yourself. When I was 18, somebody did tell me that my dad might not be my biological father. I heard the words, but they felt way too much. It was just way too overwhelming. And it's not because I didn't care. It's because my brain went, nope, that's way too big, that's way too threatening, not safe, and we're going to just put that away and not do anything about it. Second reason, cognitive dissonance. This is when two conflicting beliefs create so much internal stress that the brain will choose the most safer option, the most safer belief. So for me, going back to my example, there was the belief that mom wouldn't lie to me versus someone said dad might not be my biological father. Obviously, one of them had to be true, one of them was false, but my brain said, nope, I cannot blow up my life right now. I am 18 years old. I am about to go off to college. I cannot deal with this right now. So, again, I just decided to stay silent, never ask any questions. Number 3, loyalty and our attachment protection. When we are born, every human in this world is born with 2 needs: love and attachment, safety and security. We just call it attachment. So they need to have food, shelter, water, love, connection, right? That's the attachment. Then we also have the need to be authentic, authenticity, to be ourselves, to be free, to just be whoever we want. Like we all have a personality, we all have an authenticity that makes us us. And when we are little, we will always, always, always prioritize the attachment, the love, and the safety over our own authenticity. And you might not have parents who were extreme. So I'm going to give you just a little example. Say you were a very loud, boisterous child who really loved the arts and who really liked to act and really wanted to sing and dance. But maybe your parents, or maybe one of them in particular, was very sensitive to maybe loud noises, didn't like you being on stage, whatever it is, that would have caused you to let go of that part of your personality and prioritize the love and attachment to your parent. So you just did whatever your parent approved because you didn't want to get that disapproval or that abandonment from them. Another thing, you could have wanted to go into the arts, but maybe your parents prioritize academics over the arts. And so you then forced yourself to study law or be a doctor or whatever it is, just to prove that love to your parents so that you wouldn't get kicked out of the tribe, right? Again, attachment versus authenticity. Now, as an adult, we don't have that attachment to our parents anymore because we are our own attachment, right? We are our own humans. We take care of ourselves. So finding our own healthy attachment to ourselves means that authenticity has to be number one. But if you lived your entire childhood prioritizing attachment over your own authenticity, it is going to be hard to actually get to know who you really are, what you really want, what you really don't want, and be so unapologetic about it that you just go for it. This is what I mean when it comes down to attachment versus authenticity. Children always protect their caregivers, even when it's unconscious. And questioning a parent feels like risking abandonment. So even as adults, the inner child in us still wants connection, safety, belonging, and asking questions about my biological father when I was 18 meant I had to confront the possibility of my mother wasn't who I thought she was. And that felt way too destabilizing when I was 18, or confronting my father and feeling like I was inflicting that pain. When I found out at 38 years old and had that conversation with my father at 39, it was not destabilizing at all. It was not an easy conversation. It was not like, this is a breeze to go into and talk about. But it was absolutely not destabilizing because I have a secure, healthy attachment to myself, and my authenticity is my number one value, and I prioritize that over anything in this world. And my authentic self said, I have to have this conversation no matter what, because it is coming from a place of love, not fear. Number four, family systems theory. So in my family, we had a lot of secrets, silence, and shame. So the unspoken rule in my family system was don't ask questions, don't ask, don't disrupt. Families with secrecy have those invisible rules. That might not be your case of your family, but it definitely was with mine. And this teaches the kid to feel that sense of shame, to sense the taboo topics, and silence becomes that survival strategy. So for me, no one actually said don't ask, but the emotional climate made it clear that the certain truths were off limits. I grew up learning how to sense the energy in the room, and my body knew asking about this would break something I needed to feel safe. I'm going to tell you about a story now. So, when I told my father about finding this out on Ancestry.com, he said, when you were little, Katie, you came up to me. I was in the living room, your mother was in the kitchen, and you said, Daddy, why don't I look like my sisters? I have blonde hair and blue eyes. They have brown hair, brown eyes, and they look just like each other. And they do. And they're like 13 years apart. They're like identical twins almost. And my dad said, I don't know, go ask your mother. And he thought that I knew at that time, which I know that I did. I know that I did. My mother screams from the kitchen, what the F is that supposed to mean? So immediately my nervous system registered as this question is off the cards. We do not ask this. This is not safe to ask. My body remembered that. Even though my mind could have forgotten that, my body remembered it. My nervous system remembered it. And that's going to take me to reason five. The reason why your brain forgets, but your body remembers, is what we call the freeze and or the fawn trauma response. There are two different trauma responses or stress responses, but basically it's when your sympathetic nervous system, that gas pedal, steps on super hard. You get all that anxiety, that fear, but at the same time, we have that parasympathetic nervous system, the brake pedal, being stepped on at the same time. So the brake and the gas at the same time being like, whoa, we need to stop or slow down. So freeze mode is when we have that emotional paralysis. This is where we get stuck with procrastination. We don't know what to do. We're overthinking things, but we don't act on it. Whereas fawn is staying compliant, staying agreeable, keeping peace. Now, even though I wasn't fawning over my mom and my dad, I was fawning by, I don't want to ruffle anybody's feathers. I'm just going to stay compliant and agreeable. because that's what keeps you safe. And now, fawn mode is one of the most overlooked trauma responses because it's the most praised in society. We get so much praise and positive reinforcement from the fawn response. I didn't fight. I didn't dig in. I didn't confront. I froze. I fawned. I protected the peace. I protected my attachment. I protected my family story because my nervous system didn't feel safe enough to do anything else. Here's the thing, even when the mind blocks something out, the nervous system never forgets. So when people say, I don't remember my childhood, isn't that bad? No, it's not bad. Like nobody remembers their childhood. It was a long time ago. But could you have forgotten a lot of unsavory memories? Absolutely. But you also forgot a lot about really great ones. Like you don't have to remember your childhood. I believe this was my case to heal. Somatic healing, what I work with people connecting the mind and the body is in the present moment. This is how I've healed my body. I've done hypnotherapy like once or twice, and it was very effective and very great. But you do not have to go into these memories in order to heal. I did not have to go back into any memory of knowing that the man who raised me is not my biological father in order to heal this wound. Your healing starts by working with your body that still carries it. And how do we heal in the present moment? We heal when our symptoms and our reactions show up in our bodies, aka when your nervous system is dysregulated. So most people think that symptoms are problems, but they're prompts. They're messages telling you, hey, there's something you're not confronting. There's something that can use a little bit of attention and healing, but you just keep thinking that it's a problem and it's a physical thing that's showing up because of some mechanical thing in your body. And look, I'm not anti-Western medicine, but I know from my own experience, everything in my body has been connected to some emotional dysregulation. Here's some ways that trauma is going to show up in your body memory. It's going to speak to you through symptoms like IBS, digestive issues, skin flare ups like psoriasis, autoimmune diseases, people pleasing, shutting down, difficulty knowing what you want, overthinking, staying busy because slowing down feels unsafe, anxiety, depression, exhaustion, hypervigilance, where you're hyper aware instead of, I call it being super aware instead of self aware. These are all signs of nervous system dysregulation. This is trauma speaking. This is your body remembering something that you have not healed from. Your body is always giving you messages. It is not a weakness. And I'm sick of people identifying with symptoms as their personality. Oh, I'm just an anxious person. Oh, I just overthink a lot. Or, oh, I'm just constantly exhausted. It's just, I'm always tired. I'm just that type of person. Or, I love staying busy. I'm so creative. It's so great to be just busy all the time. I just can't stop. I love doing it. And not realizing that they're people pleasing or that they're shutting down or, oh, I just don't know what to say. Well, this is not your personality and it's not a weakness. It's your nervous system trying to keep you safe from something you were never supported to feel. This is what I help my clients do. Find that safety in the body to feel and process what they've been avoiding. And it's not a quick process. It's not the same every time, but there are steps and there are ways to do it. And it's different for everybody because what works for somebody doesn't work necessarily for others, but there is a method to the madness, and that's what I teach people. So when I was 18, I shoved the truth down. I didn't want to feel it, but my body remembered. It showed up in my relationships, my self-worth, my reactions, my need to prove myself, my inability to slow down. It took over a decade for somatic trauma healing to realize that the truth wasn't new, but safety was. So I told you that story when I was little that I asked my dad, why don't I look like my siblings? And I know my body knew. I knew the truth all along. It's just I didn't feel safe enough to talk about it. It came up again when I was 33 in a meditation retreat, a 10-day silent meditation retreat, and I told nobody. I never told my friend. I never told my husband. I never, ever talked about it. And I truly believe that your body will hold on to something until you are ready to face it. You know, when the student is ready, the teacher appears, and you are your own guru. You are your own teacher. There was another traumatic memory that came up for me when I was 30 years old about being sexually molested when I was little, around 8 or 9. And I, again, didn't have to go back into that memory in order to heal it. I needed to heal in the present moment about what my body was doing when I would talk about it. And when I used to talk about it at 30 years old, it was so icky to me because I hadn't talked to anybody about it before then. And I really feel like writing my memoir is what has healed me leaps and bounds. I feel like I quantum leaped by writing that book because I got so comfortable, or what one of my friends says about me, that Katie, you wear shame so well. I got so comfortable with my stories and with what happened to me that I am not looking for anybody's comments or approval to heal it inside my body. So, for any listener out there who may have a traumatic memory, or maybe you don't, and your body is still holding on to things, I want you to know that you don't have to remember everything. You don't have to confront anything before you are ready, and that it starts with safety in your body. It starts with awareness and breath and gentle somatic practices. And if you're listening to this thinking, that's me, my body remembers things my mind can't, I want you to know you're not alone. Thanks for tuning in to the Honest Healing Podcast. If you want to read my best-selling memoir, Trust the Flames, My Wild Ride from Mindlessness to Mindfulness, grab it on Amazon. It's probably the easiest, quickest, and cheapest way you can find it. Otherwise, if you want to check me out, you can find me on any social media handle. Katie Delamont is my name, my website, and I do one-to-one coaching, but I'm actually going to introduce some group coaching in 2026. So stay tuned for that.